I'm Heather Morgan, 32, and until last month I was the invisible data wizard keeping our company's customer retention numbers afloat. That changed during our quarterly all-hands when my manager Bradley decided my churn analysis was suddenly his strategic initiative. What he didn't know, I documented every stolen email, every hijacked slide deck, every closed-door decision for 6 months. As he clicked confidently through my slides, I watched our CEO's expression transform from interest to horror. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment and subscribe if workplace theft has happened to you too. When I completed my MBA from Northwestern with a specialization in data analytics, I never imagined I'd be documenting evidence against my own boss. My career started at a prestigious consulting firm where I developed expertise in customer behavior analysis, learning to spot patterns most people missed. Those skills caught the attention of Skyward Tech, a cloud-based project management software company that hired me as a data analyst 2 years ago. Within 8 months, I earned a promotion to senior analyst, based on my ability to transform complicated datasets into actionable insights. My colleagues often joked that I could make numbers tell stories more compelling than most novelists. What I really loved was finding the hidden narrative within customer behavior data that others overlooked. Skyward Tech was experiencing the growing pains typical of a 7-year-old SaaS company in rapid growth phase. We'd doubled in size to over 300 employees in just 18 months after securing $40 million in Series C funding. Despite our expansion, we faced an increasingly concerning customer churn problem. Our CEO, Diana Nelson, built her reputation on data-driven leadership, and the company values prominently displayed in our lobby included transparency and integrity. Those words would later feel like a cruel joke. Our data insights team consisted of 6 dedicated analysts. Jessica Wilkins was our UX data specialist, with an uncanny ability to predict user friction points. Michael Carter handled financial projections with meticulous precision. Samantha Lopez specialized in marketing attribution models, while Kyle Anderson focused on product usage metrics. Taylor Wilson was our newest member, still learning the ropes of business intelligence. We functioned like a well-oiled machine, each contributing our specialty to create a comprehensive view of company performance. That harmony began to fracture 10 months ago when Bradley Thompson joined as our new Director of Customer Analytics. His hiring announcement emphasized his extensive experience and how he would bring seasoned leadership to our team. During his first few weeks, Bradley presented himself as supportive and collaborative, publicly praising our work while privately establishing control mechanisms. "I'm here to help elevate your visibility with leadership," he assured us during his first team meeting. "My job is making sure you all get the recognition you deserve." I first noticed something off about Bradley when he began renaming my reports before sharing them with leadership. Small changes at first, adding his naming convention or restructuring the order of slides. Then came his new requirement that we copy him on all external communications. In meetings I used to handle independently, Bradley would suddenly appear introducing me as part of my team rather than by my role. When I presented data findings, he frequently interrupted with what Heather means to say is, followed by a restatement of exactly what I had just explained. 14 months ago, before Bradley arrived, Diana had personally assigned me to improve our customer retention tracking. "We need to understand why customers leave before they even think about leaving," she told me. I threw myself into building a sophisticated model that could identify early warning signs of customer dissatisfaction. The dashboard I created became a valuable tool across multiple departments, reducing unexpected churn by 23% in just 6 months. Diana had sent me a personal email praising the impact. "Your churn analysis has transformed how we understand our customer relationships. This is exactly the kind of data storytelling we need more of." That email became one of my most treasured possessions, especially in the months that followed. The warning signs with Bradley grew more obvious with time. In team meetings, he referred to my customer retention strategy when discussing the framework I had built. He began positioning himself as the architect of successes he had merely observed. The narrative slowly shifted from Heather's project to the project I assigned to Heather to eventually my project that Heather assists with. Like water dripping on stone, his revisionist history gradually reshaped perceptions, until many newer employees assumed the retention model had been Bradley's brainchild all along. The first major incident occurred during our quarterly department review. I had spent weeks analyzing the monthly retention data, which showed significant improvement thanks to interventions suggested by my model. The night before the presentation, I stayed at the office until 11 p.m., fine-tuning my analysis and ensuring every slide conveyed the right message. As I was packing up to leave, Bradley stopped by my desk. "Send me your slides so I can review them before tomorrow's meeting," he said casually. I emailed them immediately, thinking he wanted to prepare his introduction. When I arrived at the conference room the next morning, coffee in hand and ready to present, I froze in the doorway. Bradley was already at the front of the room, clicking through my slides. As I've been working on improving our retention metrics, he was saying to the department head Sarah and several other directors, "I've identified several key intervention points that have reduced churn by almost 25%. I slipped into a chair at the back, my coffee growing cold as I watched him present my work as his own. Not once did he mention my name or acknowledge that I was even in the room. When he finished, Sarah nodded approvingly. "Bradley, this analysis is exactly what we needed. Great work identifying those customer behavior patterns." My face flushed hot with a mixture of anger and humiliation. My heart raced as I debated whether to speak up or remain silent. The rational part of my brain warned that challenging him publicly might make me appear unprofessional or petty. But something deeper, a sense of injustice, burned in my chest. After the meeting dispersed, I approached Bradley in the hallway. "Can we talk privately for a moment?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. In his office with the door closed, I expressed my concern directly. "I was surprised to see you presenting my analysis without any mention of my contribution." Bradley leaned back in his chair with a dismissive wave. "We're a team, Heather. Team wins are my wins as the leader. That's just how corporate leadership works." But I developed that entire retention model and stayed late for weeks analyzing those patterns I countered. He sighed as if explaining something to a child. "You're not seeing the bigger picture. As your manager, my job is to represent our team's work to leadership. Next time I'll mention your help, if it means that much to you." He stood up, signaling the conversation was over. "If you want to advance in this company, you need to learn to play the game. Individual credit doesn't get you promoted. Being a team player does." I left his office feeling smaller than when I entered. Had I overreacted? Was this really just standard corporate politics? The confidence I once felt in my professional value seemed suddenly fragile. That afternoon, I met Jessica for lunch, needing perspective from someone who had witnessed the meeting. "You're not imagining things," she assured me, stabbing at her salad. "He did the same thing to Kyle last month with the product usage report. Word is he pulled similar stunts at his previous company too." "So this is just who he is?" I asked. "A credit thief." "Absolutely," Jessica nodded. "You should start documenting everything. Emails, meetings, your work products, timestamps, everything. He's building his success on our work, and sooner or later someone in leadership will notice the pattern." That conversation marked a turning point. I created detailed logs of all my work and communications, setting up an organized folder system for evidence. Every email exchange was saved with timestamps. After verbal conversations, I began emailing myself notes. I became more explicit about my authorship in documents and started copying relevant teammates on important updates. For verbal instructions, I requested written confirmation. This documentation habit would later prove invaluable, but at the time, it felt paranoid. Nevertheless, something told me to protect myself. 2 weeks later, Diana announced our annual all-hands meeting, where company performance would be presented to all employees and key investors. Her email emphasized the importance of transparency about our metrics, with customer retention highlighted as a key focus area. "We need to be honest about our challenges and clear about our solutions," her message read. "Retention will be a central topic of discussion." I was assigned to prepare a comprehensive churn analysis for the event. Almost immediately, Bradley displayed unusual interest in my preparation process. "I want early drafts of your analysis," he insisted during our one-on-one meeting. "We need to make sure the messaging aligns with my strategic vision." The way he emphasized my sent a chill down my spine. My intuition whispered that something bigger might be in the works. This wouldn't be like the department meeting. The stakes were much higher. In the weeks leading up to the all-hands, I devoted countless late nights to analyzing customer behavior patterns. After examining thousands of data points, I discovered a concerning trend: our highest churn was occurring among customers in the 12 to 18-month range, precisely when they should have been most embedded in our ecosystem. Digging deeper, I identified specific product issues causing dissatisfaction, created detailed segmentation of at-risk customers, and developed actionable recommendations that could potentially save millions in annual recurring revenue. This wasn't just another report. It was potentially company-changing insight that could reshape our product roadmap and customer success strategy. I felt genuine pride in what I had uncovered. This was the kind of analysis that could have real impact across the entire organization. I eagerly prepared my presentation for the all-hands, knowing this could be a defining moment for my career at Skyward Tech. Bradley's interference intensified as the meeting approached. His calendar suddenly filled with check-in meetings about my progress. He requested all my raw data and analysis files for review. Most concerning, he scheduled an executive preview of the Churn findings without including me on the invitation. Team questions about the Churn data were increasingly redirected to Bradley instead of me. "I'll handle the communication with the product team about these findings," he told me after intercepting an email thread I had started. He even canceled my regular update with the customer success team, saying he would streamline the information flow. His linguistic shift became impossible to ignore. What had once been Heather's analysis became our analysis, and finally my Churn analysis project in his communications. The warning signs reached critical mass 3 weeks before the all-hands. While getting coffee, I overheard Bradley discussing his Churn presentation with Diana in the break room. Later that day, IT notified me that Bradley had requested access to all my work files as part of standard management oversight. His assistant emailed the entire team with the all-hands agenda, which listed Bradley as the presenter for the Churn update. Jessica texted me during a meeting. "He's telling everyone he's presenting your work. What are you going to do?" 3 days before the all-hands, Bradley requested a quick chat in his office. I arrived to find him seated behind his desk, looking smugly satisfied. "This is a closed-door decision," he began, with a self-satisfied smile that made my stomach clench. "I wanted to let you know that I'll be handling the Churn presentation at the all-hands. But I've been leading that analysis from the beginning," I protested. "I understand the data better than anyone." He leaned forward. "Leadership prefers to hear from directors, not analysts. It's nothing personal, just protocol. I'll mention your contribution, of course." When I tried to object, he cut me off. "Heather, you're not understanding company politics. This is how things work at this level." The smirk that crossed his face as he added, "You'll understand when you're at my level," made something snap inside me. That night, I barely slept, my mind cycling through waves of anger, anxiety, and uncertainty. I felt violated professionally. My work, my insights, my late nights were being claimed by someone who couldn't even explain the methodology behind the analysis. Yet I feared being labeled difficult if I protested too strongly. Would challenging Bradley damage my career more than letting him take credit? The stress manifested physically, leaving me with insomnia and anxiety that made it hard to focus. I called Elizabeth, my former mentor from my consulting days, needing guidance from someone who understood corporate dynamics but had no stake in Skyward Tech. "That absolute weasel," she fumed after I explained the situation. "Unfortunately, this happens all too often, especially to women in data and tech roles." "Should I confront him?" "Go to Diana. Just let it happen," I asked. "Document everything but play chess, not checkers," Elizabeth advised. "If he's determined to present your work, let him present what he doesn't fully understand. Someone who steals credit rarely takes the time to truly comprehend the work they're claiming." Following her advice, I continued preparing materials but protected my key insights. I compiled a comprehensive documentation package, email trails, showing my authorship meeting notes, where my ownership was acknowledged, dates and times of conversations with Bradley, a statement from Jessica confirming my role, and screenshots of dashboard access logs, showing my work patterns. The night before the all-hands, Bradley sent a late email. "Send any final updates to my slides. Keep it simple for my presentation tomorrow." I sent basic updates but deliberately withheld a critical insight about a major enterprise client at risk of non-renewal. The data was there in the slides, but understanding it required the context only I possessed. Bradley wouldn't understand the significance of what he was presenting, and I suspected his lack of depth would become apparent during the Q&A. As I organized my evidence folder one final time, I realized I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was standing up for every team member whose work had been claimed by someone else. I was defending the integrity of our data culture. Sleep eluded me that night as I mentally prepared for whatever might unfold the next day. The morning of the all-hands meeting, I woke after just 3 hours of restless sleep. My stomach churned with anxiety, and my heart seemed determined to pound its way out of my chest. I carefully selected my most professional outfit, a navy blue suit that always gave me an extra boost of confidence. Before leaving my apartment, I reviewed my documentation one last time, ensuring everything was organized chronologically and backed up in multiple locations. Whatever happened today, I would be prepared. I arrived at the company auditorium 30 minutes early, watching as it gradually filled with colleagues. Our investors and board members occupied a reserved section, their presence underlining the importance of this meeting. Diana sat in the front row reviewing notes, occasionally glancing up to greet arriving executives. The room buzzed with 300-plus employees, many of whom had no idea about the tension simmering beneath the surface of our data team. Bradley worked the room, confidently shaking hands with executives and laughing a bit too loudly at their jokes. When he spotted me, he gave a dismissive nod before returning to his networking. Jessica found me in the crowd and squeezed my hand in solidarity. "Whatever happens, we all know the truth," she whispered. Diana opened the meeting with her trademark directness. "Today is about transparency," she began. "We cannot improve what we don't honestly assess." She specifically highlighted customer retention as critical to our future, before introducing the finance team for their quarterly update. As the agenda progressed through various departments, I felt my anxiety building. Each presentation brought us closer to Bradley's slot. My hands grew clammy, and I found myself taking deliberate deep breaths to stay calm. Finally, Diana announced, "Next we'll hear from Bradley Thompson on our customer churn analysis and retention strategy." Bradley strode to the podium with unearned confidence. "Thank you, Diana," he began. "As many of you know, I've been leading our churn reduction initiative over the past year." I watched the faces of my teammates who exchanged knowing glances at this blatant misrepresentation. Bradley continued through the introductory slides, presenting information about our baseline metrics and industry benchmarks. For these basic elements, he navigated smoothly enough. "Our churn rate has historically averaged around 8% annually," he explained, gesturing to a graph I had created. "Through my analysis, we've identified several key factors driving customer decisions to leave our platform." Not once did he mention my name or acknowledge the team's contributions. He presented my slides as if they were his creation, occasionally adding his own interpretation that missed the nuance of the data. As he progressed to the more complex segments of the presentation, his confidence began to falter. He stumbled over technical terminology that I had explained to him multiple times. When an engineering director asked about the methodology behind a particular segmentation, Bradley gave a vague response that made it clear he didn't understand the statistical model. Then came the critical mistake I had anticipated. Bradley reached the slide about customer segment analysis, completely misinterpreting the warning signs about our enterprise customers. "As you can see," he said, pointing to a chart that actually showed alarming churn signals among our largest accounts, "our enterprise segment is our most stable. My recommendation is to focus retention efforts on the small business sector where we see higher volatility." This was exactly the opposite of what the data showed. I watched Diana's brow furrow as she studied the slide more carefully. Several board members leaned forward, comparing the visual data with Bradley's interpretation. The disconnect between what Bradley was saying and what the slides actually showed created a growing tension in the room. When he opened for questions, Diana was the first to raise her hand. "Bradley," she began, her tone measured but pointed, "the slide behind you shows our enterprise segment with a 40% increase in early warning indicators compared to last quarter. Can you explain why you're classifying this as stable?" Bradley froze momentarily before recovering with marketing jargon. "Well, when we look at the holistic customer journey mapping through an enterprise lens, the relationship resilience factors offset the transitional indicators." His response was complete nonsense, and from Diana's expression she knew it. "Could you be more specific about which resilience factors you're referring to?" she pressed. "Because I'm looking at a significant spike in usage decline among accounts representing over 2 million in ARR. Bradley began to visibly sweat. He tugged at his collar and took a sip of water. "There are, multiple factors that contribute to the overall health score, which my team calculates using proprietary methods." Diana's expression shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension. Other executives exchanged glances as Bradley continued to fumble through non-answers to increasingly specific questions. After watching him struggle through several more painful minutes, Diana asked directly, "What methodology did you use to develop this predictive model? The statistical approach seems quite sophisticated." Bradley looked like a deer in headlights. Well, we used advanced algorithms and machine learning techniques to identify patterns in the... He trailed off, clearly unable to explain the methodology I had documented in detail. His eyes darted desperately around the room until they landed on me. A flash of panic crossed his face before he made a sudden pivot. My analyst, Heather, helped with some of the calculations, he said, attempting to sound casual. She might be able to add some context to the technical details. Diana turned to look directly at me, one eyebrow raised questioningly. Next to her CFO, Thomas asked Heather, "Could you clarify the model you developed? I'm particularly interested in how you identified these risk indicators." Suddenly, the entire room turned to look at me. Bradley forced a smile and gestured toward the stage. "Heather, why don't you come up and add some context?" My heart pounded as I slowly made my way to the front of the room. A debate raged in my mind: should I expose Bradley completely or find a way to save face for the company? With investors present, publicly humiliating a director could create unwanted drama. I decided to focus on the data, not the politics. As I took my position at the podium, beside an increasingly uncomfortable Bradley, I took a deep breath and centered myself. "I'm happy to clarify the methodology behind this analysis." I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "The model uses a combination of behavioral indicators, support ticket sentiment analysis, and product usage patterns to identify accounts at risk before traditional metrics would detect problems." I explained the actual insights clearly and confidently, revealing the critical enterprise client risk that Bradley had missed entirely. What's particularly concerning is that our highest value accounts are showing early warning signs approximately 90 days before they reach out to discuss contract changes. The audience listened in attentive silence as I provided the correct interpretation of the data. The executive team leaned forward, their expressions changing from confusion to clarity as I walked them through the actual findings and their implications. When I outlined the specific product issues driving enterprise dissatisfaction, several product managers began taking notes furiously. Bradley tried to interject a few times, but his comments were ignored as audience questions were directed at me instead. Given these findings, Diana asked, "What would you recommend as our immediate priority?" I outlined a targeted intervention strategy for the at-risk enterprise accounts, explaining how specific product improvements could address their pain points. As I spoke, Bradley gradually retreated from the podium, becoming a spectator to what was now clearly my presentation. When I finished, applause broke out across the auditorium. Diana thanked me specifically for the insights, turning to me rather than Bradley for follow-up questions. Bradley attempted one last desperate grab for control. "As my team has shown," he began. Diana cut him off. "Heather, I'd like you to join the executive committee meeting tomorrow to discuss implementing your recommendations." Bradley's humiliation was visible to the entire company as he stood awkwardly to the side, no longer the center of attention. As the meeting concluded, Diana asked me to stay behind while Bradley quickly exited the stage without making eye contact with anyone. The truth had emerged not through accusation but through knowledge and competence. As colleagues approached to ask more questions about my analysis, I caught Jessica's eye across the room. She gave me a subtle thumbs up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders. Immediately after the all-hands dispersed, Diana asked me to join her in a small conference room. Away from the crowd, her professional demeanor softened slightly. "Heather, I need to understand exactly what happened with the churn analysis development," she said, her tone direct but not accusatory. "When did you start working on this model, and what was Bradley's actual involvement?" I provided factual, unemotional responses, focusing on the timeline and work products rather than making accusations. I explained how I had developed the model over the past year, the weekly updates I had provided to the team, and how Bradley had gradually positioned himself as the project owner despite minimal contribution. As I spoke, Diana's expression grew increasingly concerned. When I finished my account, she sighed deeply. "I apologize that this situation developed without my awareness," she said. "This isn't how we operate, and it will be addressed. I'd like you to meet with HR tomorrow morning. Bring any documentation you have regarding project ownership and communication." I nodded, grateful for her directness and the seriousness with which she was treating the situation. Within an hour of returning to my desk, I received an email from Bradley to our entire team. The subject line read, "Clarification on all hands presentation." "There seems to have been some miscommunication about presentation roles today," he wrote. I had always intended for Heather to join me in presenting our team's churn analysis, as it was a collaborative effort. I'm proud of how we collectively developed these insights. This revisionist history was followed by a private message. You should have discussed your concerns with me before speaking up like that. It appeared as though you were deliberately trying to undermine me. That's not how team players advance their careers. Word spread quickly through office channels that Bradley was telling other directors I had ambushed him during his presentation. He was clearly trying to control the narrative, painting himself as the victim of my supposed ambition. I spent that evening organizing my evidence chronologically, creating a clear picture of how the churn analysis had evolved under my leadership. My documentation included dozens of emails showing my creation and development of the analysis meeting notes, where Bradley had explicitly acknowledged my work feedback from other departments addressed directly to me about the insights, timestamps showing my work on nights and weekends when Bradley was nowhere to be found. I also included previous presentations where I had delivered churn updates along with statements from Jessica and Michael about witnessing Bradley's pattern of credit appropriation. The next morning, I met with HR Director Vanessa and Diana in a formal conference setting. I presented my evidence without emotional language, sticking to the facts and the documented timeline of Bradley's gradual appropriation of my work. As you can see, I explained, showing them an email thread in February. Bradley referred to this as Heather's retention model when writing to the customer success team. By April, he was calling it our model in executive communications. By June, all references were to my strategic retention initiative when speaking to leadership. Vanessa maintained a neutral expression throughout my presentation, but I noticed her taking detailed notes. When I finished, she asked, "Why didn't you report these concerns earlier?" The power dynamic made it difficult, I explained. Bradley controls my performance reviews, project assignments, and promotion recommendations. When I did raise concerns privately, he dismissed them as my failure to understand corporate politics. HR requested permission to interview other team members, which I readily granted. Before leaving, Diana assured me, "We take intellectual honesty very seriously. This will be handled appropriately." Over the next 2 weeks, Bradley's behavior toward me deteriorated rapidly. Suddenly, every analysis I produced had critical flaws requiring revision. He assigned me tedious data cleaning tasks well below my skill level, while giving high-visibility projects to other team members. I found myself excluded from meetings I had previously attended regularly. When I did participate in team discussions, Bradley would interrupt or dismiss my contributions. Several colleagues mentioned hearing him describe me as difficult and not a team player to other managers. Most concerning, he began suggesting that my role might need to be restructured as part of department changes. The hostile environment was clearly designed to make me quit before any action could be taken regarding his behavior. I documented each retaliatory action, meticulously adding to my growing evidence file. Despite the strain, I maintained my professional demeanor and continued producing high-quality work. During this uncomfortable waiting period, unexpected allies emerged throughout the company. Senior data scientist Williams spoke to HR independently about Bradley's pattern of credit appropriation. The product team confirmed they had always worked directly with me on retention insights, not Bradley. IT provided access logs showing my late-night work patterns on the churn analysis. Even Bradley's assistant confidentially confirmed his habit of renaming files and repositioning others' work as his own. Other victims of his credit theft began sharing their experiences with HR, creating a comprehensive picture of a problematic leadership pattern. Jessica and my other teammates provided daily moral support. "He's desperately trying to salvage his reputation," Jessica observed after a particularly tense team meeting. "But too many people know the truth now." Bradley maintained a facade of confidence during this period, telling anyone who would listen that they won't fire a director over something like this, and that the whole situation was being blown out of proportion by an ambitious analyst. 2 weeks after the all-hands meeting, I received a calendar invitation for a meeting with HR Diana and CFO Thomas. The formal setting and participant list suggested a significant decision had been made. As I entered the conference room, the serious atmosphere was immediately apparent. Diana spoke first, her tone formal but not unkind. "Heather, we've completed our investigation into the concerns you raised," she began. "After reviewing extensive documentation and speaking with multiple team members, we've determined that Bradley violated several company policies regarding intellectual honesty, professional conduct, and management responsibilities." She continued, "I want to assure you that appropriate action is being taken. While we request your discretion regarding the specific personnel process, I can tell you that Bradley will no longer be leading your department effective immediately. The relief that washed over me was so intense it was almost physical. For months I had questioned whether standing up for myself would be worth the potential career damage. Now the validation of my concerns confirmed I had made the right choice. We appreciate your professionalism throughout this difficult situation, Thomas added. The integrity you've shown aligns with the values we want to embody as an organization. As the meeting concluded, Diana asked me to stay behind for a moment. When we were alone, she spoke more personally. I want you to know that I see your value to this company clearly, she said. How you've handled this situation speaks volumes about your character and leadership potential. I left that meeting standing taller than I had in months. The weight of Bradley's shadow finally lifted from my professional life. The following morning, an all-staff email announced Bradley's decision to pursue other opportunities effective immediately. The carefully worded corporate announcement couldn't disguise the reality of his abrupt departure. That afternoon, employees watched through office windows as Bradley cleared out his desk, supervised by an HR representative. His face was rigid with suppressed anger as he packed his personal items into a cardboard box. Someone overheard him muttering about ungrateful team members as he waited for the elevator. The official announcement described the change as leadership restructuring to better align with our values of transparency and collaboration. But the corporate grapevine quickly carried the real story throughout the company. By lunchtime, numerous colleagues had stopped by my desk to offer quiet congratulations or knowing nods. Senior data scientist William was appointed as interim department head, while a formal search process was initiated. His first action was to call a town hall meeting to discuss attribution and credit policies. Moving forward, William announced all presentations will clearly indicate primary contributors and project owners. No more ambiguity about who did the work. Diana followed up with a company-wide email emphasizing the importance of intellectual honesty. At Skyward Tech, we believe in recognizing contributions accurately. Our success depends on trusting each other's work and giving credit where it's due. The company implemented new guidelines for project ownership and recognition, revised performance evaluations to include collaboration metrics, and established an anonymous reporting channel for similar situations. A mandatory training session on ethical leadership was scheduled for all managers. 3 weeks after Bradley's departure, Diana invited me to apply for a newly created position, Head of Customer Insights. The role would report directly to her and include oversight of churn analysis and retention strategy. Your work has proven invaluable to our business, she explained. We need this function to have proper visibility and leadership. The interview process was rigorous, including presentations to the executive team about my vision for the department. 2 weeks later, I received the official offer with a significant salary increase and budget approval for expanding our analytics capabilities. My promotion announcement received more congratulatory messages than I could respond to in a day. Many came from people I barely knew, suggesting that Bradley's behavior had affected more colleagues than I realized. The data team celebrated my new role, with an after-work gathering where Jessica raised a toast to finally having a leader who knows what the hell they're talking about. My first priority was rebuilding a department culture based on transparency and recognition. We restructured workflows to ensure proper attribution of ideas and implemented a system where project contributions were documented and acknowledged. Jessica received a well-deserved promotion to senior analyst, and we began recruiting 2 additional team members to expand our capabilities. I established a mentorship program for junior analysts, determined to create the supportive environment I had initially hoped to find at Skyward Tech. Our weekly meetings now included time for each team member to highlight their accomplishments and recognize colleagues who had helped them. With proper leadership support, we implemented the churn reduction recommendations I had developed. I presented a detailed analysis to the product team, highlighting specific customer pain points identified through our data. A cross-functional task force was established to address retention issues with representatives from product engineering, customer success, and my insights team. We redesigned the onboarding experience for enterprise clients based on data showing where they typically encountered friction. The customer success team began using our early warning system to identify at-risk accounts and intervene before problems escalated. 6 months after Bradley's departure, our retention metrics showed remarkable improvement. The financial impact was undeniable, $3.2 million, in preserved annual revenue from retained customers who likely would have churned under our previous approach. My professional recognition extended beyond internal acknowledgement. I was featured in the company newsletter for the customer insights that had transformed our retention strategy. Industry conference organizers invited me to present our approach to predictive churn modeling. LinkedIn recommendations from Diana and colleagues led to recruitment inquiries from other companies, though I had no interest in leaving the role I had fought so hard to establish. My identity gradually shifted from analyst to leader as I grew more comfortable with my new responsibilities and visibility. The confidence that Bradley had tried to undermine now flourished in an environment that valued authentic contribution. At the 6-month milestone, I presented our updated churn metrics at another all-hands meeting. Standing at the same podium where Bradley had once tried to claim my work, I shared the dramatic improvements in retention our team had achieved. When I concluded by acknowledging the specific contributions of each team member, the auditorium erupted in applause. Diana publicly credited my leadership for the transformation, and several investors approached afterwards to express their appreciation for the data-driven culture we had established. As team members proudly presented their individual contributions to our success, I felt a profound sense of vindication. The journey from being silenced to leading with confidence had been challenging, but ultimately affirming. The board approved my department's expansion, based on our demonstrated impact, authorizing additional headcount and resources to extend our data insights capability across more business functions. Walking back to my office after the meeting, I passed the wall where our company values were displayed. The words integrity and transparency no longer felt like empty corporate jargon. We had given them real meaning through action, creating a culture where honest work was recognized and valued. Despite the professional victory, the emotional aftermath lingered longer than I expected. In quiet moments, anger and resentment would surface unexpectedly. Trust issues colored my interactions with new colleagues, and I found myself documenting conversations out of habit rather than necessity. Imposter syndrome occasionally whispered doubts. Despite my success, was I really qualified for this leadership role, or had I simply been in the right place at the right time? The anxiety that had developed during Bradley's campaign of undermining took time to dissolve. I began working with a therapist to address what she identified as workplace trauma. Your professional identity was under sustained attack, she explained. That leaves marks that don't disappear just because the situation is resolved. Gradually, I rebuilt my professional confidence. Each successful project and positive team interaction helped restore my faith in my abilities and judgment. I learned to take pride in my accomplishments again without constantly looking over my shoulder. The healing process accelerated when I began mentoring others facing similar challenges. Helping junior women navigate difficult workplace dynamics gave purpose to my experience and transformed it from merely painful to instructive. This journey forced me to develop stronger professional boundaries. I became more deliberate about documenting my contributions without appearing defensive. I found my authentic leadership voice distinct from both Bradley's credit-stealing approach and my previous tendency to minimize my accomplishments. I discovered the crucial difference between confidence and arrogance. True confidence came from knowing my capabilities and contributions without needing to diminish others. My leadership style emerged naturally from this understanding, focused on empowering team members rather than controlling them. The support system that developed through this experience became invaluable. My friendship with Jessica deepened beyond workplace camaraderie into genuine connection. Regular coffee meetings with my mentor Elizabeth provided perspective and guidance as I navigated my new leadership role. I built a professional network of ethical leaders across the industry, people committed to creating healthy workplace cultures. Diana's mentorship helped me understand executive-level thinking while remaining true to my values. Within my own team, I implemented systems to ensure everyone received proper recognition. Our no closed-door decisions policy meant all strategic discussions included affected team members. I taught everyone to document their contributions not from paranoia but professional thoroughness. When team members expressed concerns about credit or recognition, I encouraged them to speak up immediately rather than allowing resentment to build. Most importantly, I modeled proper attribution in all presentations, explicitly acknowledging individual contributions to collective work. The experience gave me perspective on broader workplace dynamics. I researched statistics on workplace credit theft and was dismayed to learn how common the experience was, particularly for women in technical roles. Understanding the structural factors helped depersonalize what had happened, while motivating me to create change. I began connecting with others who had experienced similar situations, creating an informal support network that eventually evolved into regular meetups for women in analytics roles. These gatherings provided safe spaces to discuss challenges and strategies for professional advancement with integrity. Diana invited me to speak at a company leadership retreat about ethical management practices. The presentation I developed about attribution and credit became the foundation for an article I later published in an industry journal extending the impact of my experience beyond Skyward Tech. The long-term effects rippled throughout the company culture. Transparent attribution became standard practice across departments. Our reputation as an ethical workplace began attracting talented professionals who valued integrity alongside innovation. Most gratifying was seeing improved retention of women in technical roles after we implemented clearer recognition policies. Creating an environment where everyone's contributions were acknowledged turned out to be good for business as well as morale. Looking back at my initial fears and uncertainty, I appreciate my own courage in standing firm despite the risks. What Bradley dismissed as paranoia proved to be necessary self-protection through documentation. I understand now that silence enables toxic behaviors to flourish, while speaking truth eventually creates healthier systems. One person can indeed change an organizational culture when supported by allies committed to integrity. The gratitude I feel for those who supported my journey has inspired my commitment to creating ethical work environments for others. Despite the difficulty, the experience ultimately strengthened my professional identity and clarified my values. If you're facing a similar situation of having your work claimed by someone else, remember that documentation is your strongest defense. Save emails, record meeting notes, and establish clear ownership of your contributions from the beginning. Finding allies within your organization is crucial, as collective voices are harder to dismiss than isolated complaints. The most important lesson I learned is that integrity matters more than momentary advantage in long-term career success. Organizations eventually recognize authentic value, even if the path there involves challenging powerful people. Have you ever had your work or ideas taken without credit? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more workplace insights. And remember to share this video with anyone navigating difficult professional situations who might need encouragement. Thank you for listening to my journey from invisible analyst to recognized leader. May your own professional path be guided by both competence and integrity.